Hi, everybody. Welcome to our cooking class today. I'm Stephanie Jordan. I'm the local food program manager at Sustainable Solano, and I'm really happy to have all of you here for our All About Lentils class. I see a few familiar faces out there, so I'm really glad that some of you are returning and joining us again. So this is one of many classes that Sustainable Solano is doing over the next year or so. We might actually be extending it into June of 2022, so that's good news. And the purpose is to bring awareness of our local farmers and a lot of the great specialty crops that they grow here in Solano County. If you've been with us before, you might remember that specialty crops are fruits, vegetables, nuts, and herbs. And so that's really the focus of a lot of the recipes that we're doing in this series. And this is part of Sustainable Solano's larger vision to also build a more robust and resilient local food system here in Solano County. So I know a few people are still coming in. So again, welcome. This is the All About Lentils cooking class. And, you know, we talk a lot about our local farmers and even some of the agricultural regions that are here in the county. And I just want to also acknowledge and honor the indigenous people who have inhabited and stewarded this land for generations. The unceded territory of California is home to nearly 200 tribal nations, and we are going to be sharing a little map in the chat, and we encourage you to check out the map and see which indigenous tribes and peoples are living or have lived in your area as well. So with that said, I just have one other housekeeping item. We do have a Q&A at the end of these cooking demonstrations, and so if you do have a question, you have a couple options. One is you can put it in the chat as we go, and then at the end, Allison will read the questions back to me. Another option is for you to just do the raise hand button at the end, and then you can just talk directly to me or to Allison. So whoever you'd like to talk to. So today I'm doing two recipes. They're both very straightforward and simple. And you know, it's different kinds of lentils that we're working with today. So the first one is a spiced red lentil dal, D-A-L. So the dal is basically the Indian word for, you know, some kind of a legume or the dish that has those legumes. Oh, thank you, Allison. Here is the recipe. So these recipes will be up on our website. You can print them out as a PDF, or you can just look at them on the screen. So these will be available on our website, and it'll be under the local food section of the website. So here's the spiced red lentils. It is super simple. And here you can probably see, I have this big pan of red lentils. It's essentially lentils, a bunch of spices going into a pan. The thing about red lentils is that, first of all, they are not red, they are orange. And when you cook them, they do not turn red, they turn yellow. So there's really nothing red about them, but we call them red lentils. And the way that I like to handle these at first, is to kind of pick over them, is to lay them out in a sheet pan like this, and I kind of swirl the sheet pan kind of like around in a circle, clockwise or counterclockwise, whatever you want to do, and that helps to spread them out evenly. You can kind of see it's like I have a whole sheet of lentils, and then from there I can just kind of quickly look through them. Sometimes other kinds of beans and legumes end up in these things, you know, from just manufacturing. It's a very common, typical you know, issue that happens, but it's not necessarily harmful. So I just kind of, you know, sifted through here. I think I maybe found like a piece of rice or something else earlier when I was looking at them. Sometimes if we're working with larger beans, you want to pick out any that are really broken apart or just look really shriveled, for example. So these have been kind of picked over and looked at, and they're ready to go. So we'll return to that in a second. Before we move on, I just want to have Allison share the second recipe that we're doing today, which is a French green lentil soup. This is a really basic soup, and it's a really good starting point for adding a lot of your own flavorings. I tend to like it just kind of as is, but it's very, you know, again, simple, straightforward, easy to follow. And we'll be doing that one in the this pan on the induction burner. Okay. All right, thank you for the recipe share, Allison. So we're gonna dive on in with the spiced red lentils, orange lentils in this case. So essentially, we're just gonna put everything into this pan right here. And these were prepackaged, they were not in bulk. And so when you do get them prepackaged, I would say just follow the instructions on the package in terms of rinsing. If I got these from a giant, you know, burlap bag or a giant bulk bin, then I would probably rinse, but these said they're ready to go. So I'm just gonna put those in there. And then I'm also gonna add my liquid and my spices. And so it's kind of a long list of spices. It looks a bit like a garam masala, actually. So here's my, oops, that's the wrong pan. I need to make sure I'm grabbing from the right pan here. All right. I'm going to use a veggie broth for these lentils. And then I'm also just going to start assembling some of my spices here. And I'm going to pull this down so I can see. Okay, so I've got 1.5 cups of the red lentils kind of picked over in the pan. And then I'm going to add some veggie broth, which is right here, just a carton of vegetable broth. 4 cups or 1 quart, same thing. That's going in. And then we're going to add a bunch of different spices. So the first on our list is cayenne pepper. You can, of course, do this, make this as spicy as you want. If you don't want it to be too hot, then you can just, you know, leave it out or reduce the amount. So I don't mind too much spice. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. So a quarter, there we go. Yeah, 1/4 teaspoon cayenne. We're going to add a pinch each of ground cloves and also cinnamon. So this is where it kind of starts to look a little bit like a garam masala. Oftentimes those warm spices are included in there. All right, there's my pinch of those. We have a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cardamom. These come from things called cardamom pods, which are also used a lot in Indian cuisine. Stick that over there. 1/2 teaspoon coriander. There it is. And 1/2 teaspoon cumin. So let me just grab the right thing here. Okay. That was my coriander. And then 1/2 teaspoon cumin. And some black pepper, which I have back here. So the good thing about lentils is that you don't have to pre-soak them like you do with a lot of other beans, which, and they also cook much faster. So they're super easy, great for weeknights. I'm going to throw a little bit of salt in here too, kind of a generous pinch. All right, and then we're just going to bring this to boil. I'm going to start this back over here. I'm going to turn this on to like medium high. Give it a little stir. And we'll wait for that to come to a boil. And then I'm just going to reduce the heat and let that go. Here's my lid. All right. Okay, and then I'm going to do a couple other little prep items which build some really nice flavor, which we'll add at the end. And so that is a tablespoon of, actually, you know what? I'm going to do that later. Let me get my other soup going here. We'll get the other thing prepped, and then we'll come back to that. All right, so on the green lentils, I have a mixture of stock and water. So this is, for the green lentil soup, we're going to start with a mirepoix, which is onions, carrots, and celery. And your typical ratios are 50% onion, and then 25% carrots, and 25% celery. So that's kind of your standard. And I would say that, you know, that works for a lot of different soup recipes. I mean, it's basically kind of your standard base that you can use, whether it's a lentil soup, a, you know, other kind of vegetable soup. And so I'll give you a little nice skills here too, since we're working with onions and some other long veggies like the carrots. All right, let's see if you guys can see here. Okay, so some of you I know have seen this before. Always good to do a little refresher. These are tiny little onions. So normally I would have 1 medium onion. These are really small. So I'm going to put in 2 of these little guys. So my first step is I've cut it from top. Well, first I cut off the top this way. And then I cut it in half from top to root which gives me a corner that I can grab onto and get the peeling off. So here's my little half. You can see that. It doesn't work with a white thing on. Here's my half. So I'm peeling my corner. And these look pretty good. These look a little, now that I'm peeling them, they look kind of tiny. I might throw in a third, or maybe half of a third one. There we go. Let's do that one. All right, so again, peeling my corner, getting the outside off. All right, now I have my root end on my left, and my knife, I'm right-handed, is in my right hand. So I keep my hand very flat on top here, and I just make a couple cuts so that my knife is going parallel to my cutting board, like this. Then I turn it so the root is at the top, and I'm gonna swipe through, going from top to bottom, but I'm not cutting all the way through the root that's way in front of me. I'm just going straight down, but the root is still holding all the layers together. Then I'm gonna turn it back to the original position so that the root is on my left, and then I'm gonna go straight down. And if I've made the same size cut in every direction, I get a nice little dice right here, okay? It's always a couple little chunks that don't quite make it, so I'm just gonna give it a quick chop like that, and then we're good. Let's see here, I'm gonna put that in this blue bowl. Okay, even for the little ones, I'm gonna do just the same procedure. I may not be able to get, you know, very many more than like one cut that direction, but the process still works for all of them. So even with something like shallots, which are kind of, you know, sometimes shallots are large, sometimes they're small, but it's the same, you can do the same strategy. That one had a little root. You know, and if they're super small, then I would say, you know, maybe forget about that first cut, just do the top to bottom cut, like this one. You could instead of doing that, if it's really small and kind of hard to handle, you could just do the swipes down and then go across. You might have a little bit to do at the end, but if they're small enough, then it doesn't really make any difference. Okay, and then I have my big pile here. Just gonna cut that down a little bit more. Okay, and that's ready to roll. Into our prep bowl we go. All of this pre-chopping is called mise en place, which means to put into place. And so this is enabling us to put our soup together quickly without trying to, like, you know, prep something here and manage something that's hot over there, because sometimes things will start to burn over there and you're still trying to chop. So this is just one large piece of celery. I'm gonna cut it in half lengthwise, and then I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna turn this way so you guys can see. So my left hand is like a little crab claw holding everything down. And the point is that my knuckles will hit the blade and my fingertips are tucked under, so that basically the knuckles are guiding the blade and the blade doesn't chop off my fingertips, okay? Then my right hand is going to go forward, and I pick it up and drag the tip back. Slice forward, pick up, drag back, slice forward. And if you're watching my hand, it looks like it's going around in a circle if you're watching it from your angle, basically, okay? So that's for the celery, and I will do the carrots in the same way. Depending on how chunky you like your soup, you can chop this down quite a bit or not. Totally up to you, your preference. And all of this is going in at the same time. So I'm just putting the carrots and the celery and the onions all together. These were little tiny, smaller carrots that I got from Terra Firma. They're CSA. They have amazing, fantastic carrots. If anybody loves carrots, I highly recommend you check out Terra Firma's CSA. They have a variety that they grow, which is, I think it's more of a French variety. They are actually juicy. Like, it's hard to imagine sometimes juicy carrots when you get those dry ones from wherever, you know, the supermarket, and they might have been there for a long time, but these carrots are just really great. My children eat them almost every day, which is good news. Okay, I can hear this back here coming to a boil. So let's just see what's happening. Okay. All right, so that is boiling. I just turned it down to a simmer. I think I put in this recipe that it's going to take 30 minutes. I doubt that. I think that this is really going to be more like a 20-minute thing. The red lentils, what they do is they do not hold their shape. They start to turn to mush. And so it's going to almost look like the consistency of, say, hummus, you know, when it's done. They'll kind of break down and fall apart. And then as you stir it, they just kind of meld into like, you know, I don't want to say something like mashed potatoes, but it's that really smooth consistency, like a porridge. So that's what you're going for. You don't want it to be so thick as mashed potatoes because then they're going to be really dry. So you want moisture, but not, you know, super thick dry on the red lentils. All right, I think we're ready to start our green lentil soup. And then once I get this going, then we will, I'm going to show you some pictures of some other lentils. So let me get this started. Okay. So again, this is a very, you know, standard procedure for starting lots of different kinds of soups. I'm just going to put in a couple tablespoons of olive oil. This is an induction burner, so it's going to take a little while for the activation down there to start happening with the magnetic field is what kind of makes this thing heat up. So I've got some olive oil here from Soul Food Farm over in Pleasance Valley. Looks like this. If anybody is an Eat Well subscriber, you can get this as an add-on on your box. And so I have my mirepoix ready to go here. And then we have the lentils and my stock and water combination. You can use vegetable stock, you can use chicken stock, you can use whatever stock you want. So this is 4 cups of stock and 2 cups of water. And that's what we're going to add once we saute this. And other than that, it's just some salt and pepper. So it's, again, pretty basic. So Allison, while we're sauteing here, I think I will have you share the lentil picture. I kind of showed, here I got green, I'll show you mine first. I got, oh, no, go ahead, you share. Okay, so there's black beluga lentils, which are smaller than green lentils. They are shaped a little bit more round, and they get their name because they look like beluga caviar, basically. None of these lentils really have a strong, you know, flavor per se, except for lentils de Puy, which is P-U-Y. Those are a special lentil grown in the Le Puy region of France. They look like green lentils. They're a little more speckly, and they tend to be a little more peppery in flavor. So, but otherwise, you know, these lentils are all rather interchangeable, the green and the black, that is. The red is a different animal, the ones that we're kind of cooking back there. So they disintegrate. These are going to keep their shape. So there's the black belugas. And then I think I have a picture of the French green, which are there. And you can see they're a little bit speckly. The green lentils are going to, you know, again, hold their shape. I mean, you can overcook them for sure. But these are great braised. You can do the soup like we're doing today. You know, you can throw them into other soups also. And again, you might see French green, you might see the lentils de Puy or lentilles de Puy, which are the ones from France. They're both very similar. All right, next one, Allison, thank you. Here are brown lentils. So these are probably the most common that you would find at a grocery store. They are going to behave very much like the green lentils. I feel like the brown ones actually do soften a little faster than the green. So just depending on what you're doing, you might want to keep that in mind. And then finally, we have the red lentils, which are orange, and will cook kind of into a yellowy color when we're done. And so the red lentils do fall apart. What you can substitute for the red lentils, you can do like split peas, or you can also use like yellow mung beans in place of these red lentils if you would like. So they're going to behave a little bit differently. All right, thank you, Allison. So I have here my onion, carrots, and celery. I'm going to add a little pinch of salt to that. And I'm looking for just some softening, and I want the onions to get translucent. And then I also thought I would just show you, here's the green ones, and I happen to have some black belugas in my cabinet too. So, you know, again, these are, the little black ones are probably like half the size of the green ones, but tasty nonetheless. Okay, let's see what's happening in here. All right, we are almost ready. What I'm looking for on the onions is, you know, when the onion is raw, it's kind of white and opaque. And so what I'm looking for in here is for the onion to start to turn more translucent or kind of see-through. And also I'm just looking for my carrots to turn kind of a bright orange, which means they're moving along in the right direction. And if there's a little caramelization in here, that's okay too. You know, if I have a little browning on the bottom of the pan, great. That's going to add some flavor to our soup. And so I know that I mentioned this is kind of the base, and you can kind of add on from here. So some other things that I wanted to talk about in terms of adding, you could do a little bit of sausage or some kind of bacon. And if we were doing that, I would add it at the beginning before we even start with these vegetables. I would do, let's say, bacon. So I would chop up some bacon, throw that in here, cook it until it's done, crisp to whatever your liking is, take it out, and then leave some of the rendered fat in the pot, and then use that plus olive oil. You can add to it depending on how much fat you render. You would then use some of that for your saute, which is what I have right now. Okay. All right, this is looking good. So I'm going to add the green lentils, and you know what, I'm going to give these a quick rinse, actually. So I'm just going to put them in a fine mesh strainer like this, because I think these did come from a bulk situation. So okay, good. All right, in they go. And in goes my stock. Okay. And then we're just gonna cover these once they boil. Actually, I'm gonna cover it now. It'll boil a little faster. Okay. So, and then this should take maybe like half an hour-ish. We may or may not get to the end of this, but I just wanted to get it started. Okay, other additions to this soup. We could do lots and lots of garlic. So garlic and lentils are a happy pairing. You could do the garlic at the beginning in this phase with the saute, or you could saute a little bit at the end in some olive oil and just throw it in, you know, maybe half cook it. You know, one thing I like to add to soups sometimes, if it's like a minestrone or like maybe a basic chicken soup or something, is pesto. And pesto is really raw garlic with the basil and the Parmesan and the olive oil and the salt and pepper, etc. And so, you know, you're not cooking the garlic in that case, but I feel like even adding like some just really quick, like 2 seconds in a pan, minced garlic, and then stick it in at the very end would bring out a nice flavor. So that's an option. Chopped fennel, I'm noticing, is showing up in my CSA boxes. So that would be another good addition that you could do with this. And what you could do is just cut it up, and I would put it in when you add your mirepoix at the beginning. You want to just saute it with the onions, carrots, and celery, get it tender. You could keep some of the fennel fronds and use those at the end for garnish. What else? Let's see. I think that's about, yeah, I think I would add that into the soup. Now, fennel can be a little strong. You know, it's kind of this licoricey anise type of flavor. So, you know, just know what you're getting into. Start small. You can always, you know, add more fronds at the end or something. Another good addition for this soup would be some kind of a winter green like kale. And, you know, dino kale would work, curly kale. You have a couple options on the kale. You could put those in at the tail end of the mirepoix saute, let it turn kind of bright green, and then add your lentils and liquid and go from there. Because the kale sometimes does need to cook. If it feels kind of tough, like some of the curly kales need some time. So I would put those in. If you have like a baby kale that seems more tender, then you could probably add that to the soup when it's about half done or so. Another option for the kale or even spinach is just saute it on its own separately with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then just stir it in at the end of the soup. You know, sometimes if I have like leftovers in the fridge, you know, I might have the soup and it's like, oh, look, I have some leftover sauteed greens. Yeah, let's just throw it in at the end. Let's see, what else? Herbs that go good would be some fresh thyme. I think rosemary would also be good. The thyme I would add at the end because it's not going to take long for those fresh herbs to cook, but rosemary, on the other hand, is a little more tough and needs a little extra help. So I would probably put that in at the beginning with the mirepoix saute. Finally, another thing that I really like to pair with green lentils, or the black ones too, would be a sweet potato or a butternut squash or some other kind of winter squash. I was remembering a salad that I used to make when I was catering, and it was basically braised lentils, and then I added like roasted butternut squash cubes and some walnuts. I think I threw in some goat cheese, and there's probably something green in there too, maybe some chives or something like that. So the squash and the potatoes go really good with the lentils as well. All right, let's see how our red lentils are doing back over here. All right, these are looking good. They are mushy and they are just starting to fall apart. There's still a little bit of shape there, so I'm going to just keep those going. What I will do is finish up kind of the last step on the red lentil dish, which is we're going to add a little boost of garlic and ginger at the end. And we're also going to throw in some butter because why not? Butter is yummy. Add some flavor. So I'm just going to take off a couple tablespoons of butter, stick it on my sheet pan there. And then I want to have a tablespoon of garlic and a tablespoon of minced ginger. So I'm going to just get that ready, and then we'll do a little quick saute at the end. So a tablespoon of garlic is going to be approximately 3 cloves. The general rule is you've got about 1 clove is about 1 teaspoon. And so you've got 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. Whoop, that one just flew off. That was kind of fun. It must have been two cloves stuck inside the little paper thing here. All right. So while I'm doing this, I also want to mention a few health benefits of lentils. There goes another one flying apart. So they are, of course, a really great source of protein, plant-based protein. They are composed of about 25% protein in the lentils. So, you know, excellent for vegetarian friends, or just if you don't feel like having meat and you want some protein, go for those lentils. All right, this piece of garlic is not cooperating. They have a lot of folate also, and high in fiber. They also have iron and a broad range of beneficial plant compounds, phytochemicals, which protect against some chronic disease. So all around, they are just a really healthy little powerhouse of nutrients. In terms of sourcing, there's not a lot of local Solano farmers who grow lentils. They are, you know, there are some grown in California, but they're not as local as I would love, because I do like them. a lot of lentils are grown in Idaho and Washington states. I think I saw in the chat, somebody was talking about Rancho Gordo. So I was going to talk about Rancho Gordo. They are a bean company based in Napa, and they do work with a lot of local growers to assemble a variety of different beans. Again, if you're an Eat Well subscriber, you can get add-ons of Rancho Gordo beans in your boxes. I know Lorraine, the owner of Eat Well, really tries to source those and get a lot of really interesting heirloom beans from them. So check it out, Rancho Gordo. I think they might even be able to ship. I'm not sure what their protocol is right now with COVID, but I know they supply, of course, retailers, but there might be a chance you can get it directly from them. Okay, here's my garlic. And then we need about a tablespoon of ginger. So this is fresh ginger. And I'm going to use a spoon to scrape off the outer kind of thin skin. I don't want to use a peeler because it's going to take off too much. So I just want to use a little spoon. These kind of old school measuring spoons tend to work well because they have kind of a sharper edge here. All right, I think I got it off there. Let me just trim this up. Give that. Looks like it'll make about a tablespoon. So we can chop it, or we can use a microplane, which is used a lot for like Parmesan cheese and whatnot. So you just, whoops, I'll lose it there. I'm gonna just scrape this against here. And the benefit of doing this is that you sometimes don't get a lot of those little hairy fibers that live in the ginger. So this will kind of keep those out. You'll just get the essence and the main flesh of the ginger. Do a little tap here. I'm almost to the bottom here. I'm gonna slow down so I don't scrape my hands. Okay. All right, and there's that. Okay, so my last step on the red lentils is just to put this butter in a saute pan, quickly cook our garlic ginger mixture here, and then stir it into the lentils once they're done. So I'm gonna go back here and check these once again because I feel like they were close. Okay, yeah. It's a little soupy at this point. So let me ladle some of this into a bowl where you can see. I might leave the lid off because it seems soupy enough and they look like they're starting to cook or starting to be done rather. So here it is. It's like, porridge. Nothing is staying together. It's just kind of falling apart and disintegrating. Okay. I'm just going to taste it really quick. Yeah. So they're basically done. It's a little spicy. Yum. That's good. I'm going to leave the lid off because it looks like I just have a tad too much liquid still in here. So I'm going to keep simmering for maybe another 5 minutes or so. I might turn the heat up just to help evaporate some of that extra liquid. And then all we do is we do our little saute. All right, that's doing its thing. So let me grab, let's see here. Yeah, I'm just going to do this over here on my All right, so I'm just going to heat up a small saute pan over there, put in my butter and my garlic ginger, give that a quick mix. As soon as I smell this, we're done. So it's a very quick process. Okay, once I hear that, I'll go check that and let's see what's going on over here. Okay. So these are starting, but it's going to be a little while. So, but this is much soupier. You know, we have a lot of liquid and a lot of, the lentils are still, you know, they're just starting to cook. So what will happen here is it will get a little thicker, but it will not be as thick as the red lentils over there. Okay, let's see. I think once we do this last step on the red lentils, I'll just kind of plate that up and that will be done. All right, so I have my garlic ginger butter, which smells yummy. And I don't really want any of this to brown. I'm just getting the aroma out. And as soon as I see it start to get golden, I'm pulling it off because I don't really want it to get too crispy or too cooked. All right, I'm starting to see a little bit right there, and that's it. So very fast. So here's the lighting in here is really goofy. I don't know if you can see any of that. Butter, garlic, ginger. All right. Okay, my red lentils, which are now yellowish, are done. Put a little bit of that. Okay, we'll have this ready to plate up. So all of this yummy garlic ginger mixture is just going to go right into my red lentil pot. And that's going to take it up a notch. And then from here, all we need to do is adjust the seasonings, like the salt. And, you know, if you wanted to save a little bit of the garlic or the ginger, you know, just to kind of do a little tad on top as a garnish, that's definitely an option. I am going to garnish with a little bit of cilantro. And, you know, I was just thinking another, you know, you could also experiment with a little bit of coconut. Instead of the butter, you could do like coconut oil or something. All right. So here's my yellow lentils, red lentils, which look yellow, with some yummy warm Indian spices, really great for winter time or early spring, which we have now and it's still kind of cold. All right, and then our soup over here is going to be working for a while. So I'm just going to turn that down. And just a couple other things I want to mention, and then we'll open it up for questions. In terms of storage, you know, beans and lentils, they are dry. They do keep a long time. However, you know, you want to make sure they're in a cool, dark place. And if they do start to get wrinkly, then they may not cook very evenly. So you do kind of want to use them within a few months of buying them. You know, if you find something that's 2 years old, may not work so great. This green lentil soup freezes really well. So I tend to make like a double batch of this and just bag it up and freeze it, and it thaws and you're good to go. So something to keep in mind there. Also, as you're cooking lentils or any other kind of bean for that matter, salt is great to add, acid is not. So what will happen is the acid will start to make the outer shell of the bean or the lentil not permeable anymore to the water. So it'll act as a barrier, and then your beans or lentils will not soak up the water and get soft. So the acid, you know, tomatoes, vinegar, any kind of citrus. So just think about that as you're cooking. If I were to add some kind of acid to this right now, my lentils just would not cook. Like they would be crunchy and it would just be kind of a mess. So keep that in mind. Salt, however, fine. You know, I added salt at the beginning. I'll add more salt at the end. Let's see. I think that was maybe all I had to say. We have a survey before we do Q&A. Allison's going to post a link to our survey in the chat. So super important. And even if you've been with us before, I highly encourage you to fill it out. Helps us a lot with our reporting, and it enables us to get more funds for more of these classes. So please check that out. And I think that was it. So Allison, if we have any questions, this would be a good time.
Yes, we do have a bunch of good questions, and appreciate you sharing about sourcing. There was some good conversation in the chat about getting some of the ones that might be harder to find. There were suggestions of the Indian store, Whole Foods, Berkeley Bowl, as well as Rancho Gordo. So
yeah, all good options. I agree.
So I see Tina has her hand raised. So Tina, I am going to see if I can unmute you.
And I'm going to turn up my volume. Let's see if this works.
Asked to unmute. So let's see if I can do that. Can you try unmuting yourself now, Tina?
She still looks muted from what I can see. I think you're still muted.
Oh,
there you are. Now I hear you.
My hand was raised. No, I didn't have any questions. I was just commenting. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, no, lovely. No, just want to make sure if people do have their hands raised, we get to them. So great.
Okay.
So yeah, so let me go through some of the questions from the chat. One of the questions, which I figure you could answer in a little more depth than me, was what are the non-specialty crops? So can you give a little explanation of the difference?
Sure. It's mostly commodity types of crops. So corn, let's see here. Gosh, there's like a bunch of grains that are not specialty crops. So things like quinoa and rice and farro and, you know, on and on with that kind of barley, that kind of stuff is not specialty crop. The interesting thing about soybeans is that it's listed in the non-specialty crop section of a little document I have from CBFA, but they say that edamame is a specialty crop, and we all know that edamame are soybeans. So, but I believe what they're talking about is like the soy that's grown, like say in the Midwest, which is, you know, fields and fields of soybeans, which are going to get turned into like, you know, oil or, you know, whatever. It's used in a lot of the, you know, it's additives for a lot of packaged products. You know, other non-specialty crops would be like, it's a lot of seeds too that are used for other oils like canola and that sort of thing. I'm trying to think what else, but yeah, if you're interested, you could go to California Department of Food and Agriculture, or CDFA, and just Google, you know, definition of specialty crops. And there is a PDF document that you will probably find, and it'll kind of give you the big rundown. You know, the other thing that is included in specialty crops are nursery products and flowers. And so that's kind of a big piece of it too. But for our purposes in this project, we're doing, you know, the edible items. But that's kind of the ones that off the top of my head, I remember are non-specialty crops. So yeah, I'm not working a lot with grains right now. If we get other funding and or are able to expand this, then by all means, I'm going to tackle fish, seafood, meats, grains, the whole 9 yards. So I look forward to that day so I can share more with you than a lot of these plant-based, you know, veggie and fruit things. So.
For the soup, did you peel the carrots or just wash them well?
I did peel. I peeled them before I got on here with you guys live. Yeah. But that's entirely up to you. You know, they're organic carrots. I wouldn't really have to peel them. You can just scrub. You know, carrot skins are very, very thin. So if you want to just give them a good scrub and then cut and put them in, yep, that's all good.
And there was a question about homemade veggie stock. Do you have good suggestions or a good recipe for that?
Yeah, you know, I was just thinking of that before I did this class, and I was thinking to myself, maybe once my kids can go back to school, we'll do a more comprehensive like stock or some kind of, you know, stocks and sauces or whatnot. You know, one of my fellow chefs in town, Veronica Beers, she makes a lot of veggie stock. She tends to just throw in a lot of these scraps that end up in my little, you know, my scrap bowl. You can definitely recycle bits of the onion, the carrot peels, the celery ends. Let me look around. I mean, I know I've made it a lot in the past, and I'm not coming up with, you know, anything right off the top of my head, but let me do a little research on my end, and maybe we can post a veggie stock on our website. That's a great idea. So yeah, thank you. But it's really nothing more than just the veggies, the water. I think what would also help build some flavor to that is if you wanted to put in some actual, you know, vegetables is, you know, I'm a big fan of roasting and getting a little caramelization before you then put it into the pot with the water. So it's just kind of another good way to add some flavor to your stock.
Okay, great. And then there was a question with the pesto pairing with the lentils. There was a question if you could put the pesto with the green lentil soup. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking about the pesto. I was trying to get across the point of like putting raw garlic or something with raw garlic into your soup at the end is not the end of the world. It's kind of a yummy way to go, and it's similar to pesto. But for this, I don't know if I would put a basil pesto in there. I think I would do more like, you know, it might be really interesting and tasty, which I've used on meat before, is a parsley walnut pesto. Similar idea, you know, you have parsley and some garlic, and instead of the pine nuts, you're using, you know, the walnuts. You still have some olive oil. What else could I put in there? I mean, that's kind of the main bits of it, really. Salt, pepper, maybe some Parmesan. Yeah, throw some Parmesan in, or some pecorino would be good with that too. So yeah, I think that the basil, I don't know, I feel like the earthiness of the lentils calls for something else than basil. I feel like basil's a little more like fresh and pear. I don't know, it's a different flavor profile, but I would maybe try parsley. You could also maybe put in a tiny bit of fresh oregano with that. You know, maybe do mostly parsley, but maybe a little bit of oregano. Kind of looking out at my herb garden out there to think what else. You could definitely throw in some chives too, and kind of mix that in. Oh, do I see it? What about cilantro? Sometimes I can read that chat and sometimes I can't. Yeah, you know, again, I don't know. I feel like if we were making the black beans here, definitely cilantro, but I'm feeling like maybe more of the classic, think like, I don't know, the stuff that shows up at Thanksgiving is kind of what I want to put with the lentils. Sage might be interesting, like you could do some fried sage leaves as a little topper. That would be kind of interesting and yummy. So you just do olive oil in a saute pan and just wash and dry your sage leaves and then just stick them in with your olive oil, and they will literally just kind of fry up. You know, you'll just turn them, it takes about a minute, and they'll get crispy. And so that could be kind of a good addition to this too, on top. But in terms of the pesto, I would go down the road of parsley. Arugula would be another interesting thing to use, and maybe do a blend of these things with some walnuts. I think that would be a good mixture.
Okay, great. Does cooking vegetables such as the carrots change their fiber content?
I don't know about fiber, but you know, I have heard that carrots, there are more nutrients available to your body after you cook them, as opposed to eating them raw. I can't remember where I saw this, but there is a short list somewhere out there that talks about, you know, which vegetables you want to cook as opposed to eating raw in order to get the maximum nutrients from that particular vegetable. For some reason, I think tomatoes are on that list too, but don't quote me. But yeah, there's the carrots I do remember, because I keep thinking about my younger son who loves to eat them raw, but he doesn't want to eat them cooked. And I'm thinking, well, you get more nutrients if you can eat them cooked, but he doesn't like to eat them soft. So in terms of the carrots, yes. As far as other things, I don't know, but that information is definitely out there.
And I guess along similar lines was a question, if you blend fruits like in a smoothie, does that affect the fiber content?
I don't think blending is going to affect the fiber. I think as long as you have the fruit and you're keeping the parts of it that have the fiber, like for example, I mean, you would not skin a blueberry, but you know, the skins on the blueberries probably have the fiber on the blueberries. You know, apples and pears, the fiber's in the skin. So you want to keep those on. Let's see, what smoothies? I mean, what strawberries, bananas. Well, speaking of smoothies, I kind of did a little trick. I mean, bananas will mask just about anything. So I actually made a smoothie last night for my kids, and it was bananas and blueberries and a handful of spinach and some vanilla yogurt. And that was about it. And they gobbled it up. So, you know, you could probably work in a few other things that maybe has fiber. But I think in terms of the blending it, I don't know if that's going to affect the amount of fiber. It would actually probably help your body to digest the fiber more easily and more quickly, because you're kind of already breaking it down. You're doing that first step, which is what your, you know, teeth are meant to do. So.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, actually, Sylvia had a similar comment about, yeah, the digestion. So, and then there was a question about storing fresh herbs, if you could give some tips on that.
Yep, I can. Let me I have a bunch. I have yet another bunch of cilantro here, which we can do a little demo on. So this came from the store. And I haven't put it away yet because I just got it today. So for this, what I would do to keep it in my fridge is I'm going to treat it like it's a little bunch of fresh flowers. I'm going to put it in a glass of water and keep it all in a little bunch here. Now, that being said, if the ends, you know, look like they're getting a little brown and dry, you can give it a fresh cut and then put it into the water. Sometimes when I get herbs like cilantro from my CSA, sometimes the roots are actually still on there. Like they've just pulled the whole thing out. Those will last longer in this scenario. And then you can take a bag, either the same bag or a different bag, and I just kind of loosely cover this like that. Okay, so now I've got my cilantro in water, in a cup, and a little loose bag over the top. I don't need to rubber band this or anything. And then I'm just gonna put this into the fridge as is. I tend to keep it on the door so it doesn't tip over. And so this will help keep it fresh because, you know, it's gonna keep pulling water as if it's, you know, a fresh cut flower or leaf. In the summertime, you can do this with basil, stick it on your countertop, and it'll keep for just a couple of days just on the countertop. So this works for parsley, basil, cilantro. You know, I don't really do it with the oregano. Usually I just pick the oregano and use it, or grab it and use it. And the oregano it doesn't have nice little stems like these do. But this is kind of my recommendation for the fresh herbs. You know, if you do want to wash them and have them kind of ready to go, like I had in my container over here, the key is to get them nice and dry. So I've put this cilantro in a big bowl of water, sloshed it around. The dirt or any sediment will sink to the bottom of the bowl, and then the leaves will float. Then you skim off the leaves from the top. I put it in a salad spinner and spin it as dry as I can. Sometimes what I do is I spin it and then I dump it out onto a towel and just let it sit on a kitchen towel for a few minutes so that it's nice and dry. And then I pack it into a container with some paper towel layered in between. So I'll do a little handful and then a little paper towel and another handful and another paper towel. This lid is not super tight. I mean, it's like a, you know, commercial kitchen type of thing here, but it's not like one of those lids that's really locked, you know, really tight. So there's probably a little bit of airflow, which is okay, because, you know, you want to, the key is to keep it from getting too moist in here, because once you get a lot of moisture, then it starts to decompose. And again, just depending on, you know, if you get your herbs like this from the store, you know, you have no way of really knowing how long it's been there, how long it was on a truck before it got onto the shelf. So, you know, you could do this whole procedure and then it could be looking sad in 2 days, and that's, You know, it's just kind of because you don't know how long it's been out. But when you get things like, you know, fresh from the farm, typically on the CSA boxes, all of that was picked within the last 24 to 48 hours, and it'll keep longer. So that's the story on the herbs. I'm gonna check this too. Anything else?
Yeah, there was a question about what you would suggest serving the dal with.
Oh yeah, rice would be good, basmati of some sort. Then you'd have kind of a complete protein, because whenever you have the rice with some kind of a bean or legume, you get a complete protein. I think this would also be excellent with potatoes, like a Yukon Gold, for example. Let's see, I had another thought. Oh, this would also pair well with cauliflower of some sort, you know, purple, white, whatever color of cauliflower. But yeah, rice would be, I would say, the more traditional, typical way to serve it. And you could also kind of put it into a little Indian menu. A couple weeks ago, I did a sauteed warm Indian cabbage salad. It's really like a side. So that would also, I've served it with the cabbage dish before too, and that's yummy as well. So this, I wonder if this is about done. Let me check on this. And anything else, Allison?
There was a little bit of discussion about from the smoothie conversation, and just a question on if you have any suggestions for a vegan smoothie.
Oh, the smoothie, vegan smoothie. Let's see. Well, you're really just not adding dairy. So I think I would just do like, I mean, bananas are not local, but they tend to be, you know, they're thick and they can help hold and give body to the smoothie. So I think you're really just doing fruits of various kinds. You know, feel free to experiment and throw in a little bit of spinach or something. And then you can flavor it with, you know, ginger, with cinnamon, with, you know, honey, whatever you want to do. Other spices work well too. I know we did a kids class about a month ago, and I did a citrus smoothie, but I think that may have had yogurt in it. But it was basically just, you know, orange juice. You can do some ginger and apple juice, but I feel like in order to get that thickness, you can either use yeah, you know what I would do? I would freeze your bananas. I think I would peel them, put them in a bag or whatever freezer container you have, stick them in the freezer, and then when those are frozen and you add them to the smoothie, then it'll kind of help, you know, make it a little icy and a little bit thick. Because I mean, that's kind of what the yogurt does, is it helps to keep it a little bit thick. So yeah, vegan smoothie, I think you're just really relying on mostly the fruit. I'm trying to think if there's anything else you could add. Oh, I know, chia seeds. My sister does this chia pudding thing where I think she uses almond milk, and you soak the chia seeds overnight and they get thick. And so that might work too. So you could use like a non-dairy milk of some sort to kind of get your chias going. And they kind of get this viscous, not really gooey, but it's kind of a thicker kind of a consistency to it. And that might help your smoothie along too. And you've got some extra nutrients from the chia seeds. So there's my thought of the day.
All right, great. Those are the questions in the chat. There was a question about the Indian cabbage salad, and I am going to share the recipe page again in the chat. You can find that there.
Okay. These are still a little crunchy, but they're almost there. So the lentil soup is what it is. You probably won't be able to see it, but actually I can throw some into a bowl. I'm losing my spoon. Here we go. Yeah, Allison, go ahead and share the recipe page on our website. That's a good idea, and people can see where that is. My lighting is going to start to get a little funky because I've got, so I don't know if you guys can see this, and the bowl has ridges on it, but the lentils are getting there. You know, it's still, I'd say it's like half, it looks like 50% liquid and 50% lentils. They're not quite tender yet, but they're getting there. So, and I do not know how long we've been cooking them, maybe at least maybe half an hour, 20 minutes. So a little bit more on these, and then they're good. One other thing I just remembered that sometimes I see people add at the end of the lentil soup or braised lentils is just a tiny bit of, you know, some kind of vinegar, a little drizzle of a white balsamic or something like that. So if anybody's around Venetia, there's a shop called Cipe Grove, and they have olive oil and a lot of different flavored vinegars. And so you can check that out and maybe experiment with adding some of that at the end too. So, and again, I just want to remind everyone of our survey. If there's no more questions, Allison, we're good? No?
I think we're good on questions.
We're good. Okay, awesome. So please fill out the survey, and oh, Allison, you wanted to share the page, the recipe page.
Yeah, it's shared. It's in
oh,
the
you
chat.
Did. Oh, okay. All right, I missed it there. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you guys again next time. Thanks for joining us.